Been on the Craig Counsell watch here the last couple of days. Right now, all is quiet. Will it be a Friday news dump? I don't think so with New York. Maybe something over the weekend, something will get reported. We'll talk about this and what you all think. Some of you want him to leave. Not so fast. We'll talk about all this coming up here on this edition of Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Game one of the World Series is tonight, and there's those Arizona Diamondbacks in the World Series. Who would have guessed that 3 weeks ago when they beat the Milwaukee Brewers on a Thursday night? No, on a Wednesday night in Milwaukee. Yeah, I never got the Thursday. It was a 2-game series. Yeah, I never got the Thursday. We're hoping it would have, but it didn't. Yeah, Arizona playing game one of the World Series tonight against the Texas Rangers, who had those two teams matching up in the World Series, starting on a Friday night. Normally, past years, I know it was a Saturday, Sunday thing, but Friday night, they're doing whatever they can to get some pub. And I don't know, Friday night's a weird night to start the World Series. But anyway, no news yet on Craig Counsell. No news, but you're hearing all sorts of rumblings. And I know a lot of you Brewer fans out there have a lot to say about this. Chuck Freeman here, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you, everybody, for following us along. We're going to be here all off season, talking Brewers news with you, talking about the off season, what happens next. We'll be here when the news drops as well, whether or not Counsell stays or goes. You know something's going to be reported. I'm surprised something hasn't been right now, but follow us on Google, Spotify, Apple, all the major downloads. We're the number one Brewer podcast on the internet for a reason, because you great Brewer fans out there and our growing YouTube audience. Search Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Drop it every day. We're here Monday through Friday. Search Locked On Brewers. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell. It'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today, jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Yeah, I mentioned the Friday news dump. That is one of those things where, like Friday afternoon, if in the media business, if there's companies out there that want to report bad news, somebody getting fired or whatever, usually that happens on a Friday afternoon, because the old saying is, on Fridays, people are heading up vacation, doing this, watching news. Fridays and Saturdays are one of the least watched days for news. So dump that news on a Friday afternoon. But in this case with Craig Counsell, a couple of things. I have a feeling they're waiting until the end of his contract, which expires October 31st, to announce anything, because he's still technically under contract, even though he's been given permission to talk to the Mets and Cleveland Guardians. He's still under contract until the end of the month. Plus, Major League Baseball does not want any news broken while the World Series is going on. Don't want that at all. None of these professional sports want that. I remember the St. Louis Rams got heck years ago when they announced Dick Vermeil during Super Bowl week, and the NFL was not happy. The NFL, it was the same week the Packers are playing New England in a Super Bowl 31, and they were not happy down, and the NFL was not happy with, I was down in New Orleans, they were not happy. And Major League Baseball, the New York Mets, I would think something maybe next week, although the World Series is going on. I have a feeling something's going on. Now we're hearing, the Bob Melvin move. But I got a feeling the Mets are going to want to make a splash when there's nothing going on, so they get all the attention, if indeed that's going to happen. Now, I see a lot of you guys out there saying, well, it's all about the money for Craig Counsell. Oh, he wants to stay in Milwaukee, but does he want to be with his kids and all that? I don't know. Yeah, I cover the Milwaukee Brewers, but who really knows what Counsell really wants? Does he want the money grab? He has made it no secret that managers deserve to be making more money than they are. And that's true. Okay. Would he double? If you double your salary, any job, my job or any job, you have to think. If somebody says, hey, we could double your salary, you got to think about it. You have to think about it. Absolutely, you have to think about it. No matter where you're going. Okay? And in this case, yeah, and plus, it's a prime job. He's not going to a place he cannot win with the New York Mets. Okay? He's not going to a place where, if he wins in New York, he can own that town. There's a battle in baseball between the Mets and the Yankees in that city. And both teams had bad years. Both teams missed the postseason. But if he wins there, man, he could own New York. He could be the talk in New York. On the other hand, if he doesn't, it goes the other way for the manager in that town. Just turn on WFAN in New York and hear the callers and all the scrutiny that Aaron Boone gets, okay, with the Yankees all summer long. So, does he want that pressure? Does he want it? I think anybody, really, if you're any kind of competitor, and Craig Counsell, as a competitor, yeah, you're going to take the opportunity. He's 53 years old. Why not take the chance if you're him? Yeah, you have to think about it. If he wasn't thinking about it, he wouldn't be interviewing, and he would have made it clear at the end of the season, instead of saying that now was not the time to talk about it, he would have said, I'm not interested. Although guys like Nick Saban have said when he was at Miami, I am not interested in the Alabama job. And a week later, he's at Alabama. Counsell did not lie to us at all, which, he's a pretty upstanding guy. Being around him, yeah, he's not going to tell us the keys to the kingdom or what's going on. That's his personal business. But I think he's considering this job. And it could be a thing where the New York Mets will not want to drop the news until after he's out of his contract with the Milwaukee Brewers, October 31st, which it is. It could be one of those things. But, he's interviewing for this in Cleveland. And I put a tweet out there the other day that could he be thinking of maybe sending if he is staying with the Milwaukee Brewers, sending a message to the Brewers, hey, you know what, I'm with you guys, but don't get too comfortable. And I think that goes for any employer out there. Don't get too comfortable. You're doing a good job at all that. Let's get some pat on the backs and stuff like that. And, hit me in the bank account where it counts. I think that goes for anybody, any place, any walk of life. You do not want your employer to get too comfortable with you that they take you for granted. And I'm not saying this is the case with the Milwaukee Brewers, but the Brewers, I think, know what they have with him. Okay. And I think when you find out, hey, your guy, there's another girl showing interest in your guy. There's another girl over here showing interest in your guy. You want this, right? You want to keep him. You don't want him going here or here or here, right? Like the dating world, I guess, right? Same thing with the professional world. You don't want him talking to the Mets in Cleveland. You want to keep your guy. Now, if Attanasio does not keep him, I think he'll ante up. I don't think it's going to be a case where, if he signs with the Mets, the Brewers don't give. I think the Brewers will do a counteroffer on that. And I know if he goes to another team, people are going to come down to Mark Attanasio. But I really believe that if Attanasio really wants to keep him, which I think he does, he's going to financially make it worth Counsell's while. But then you could also take the notion like this. It took me other offers. If I'm Counsell, I took an offer from the Mets and I took an offer from the Cleveland Guardians to show how much you appreciate me. Now you're doubling my salary. How come you didn't give me the salary from the beginning? How come it took me to go to the New York Mets? How come it took me to go to Cleveland Guardians to get my salary doubled? You take that as well. I totally get it. It's fine. It's funny because once you start throwing other employers out there, then it's like, oh, God, we want to keep you. It seems like in the professional sports business. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to read some of your tweets as well. And how much of a difference maker is Craig Counsell with the Milwaukee Brewers? We'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. This show is brought to you in part by Ibotta. How does free Thanksgiving sound. This year, Ibotta is here to give you cash back to help you make your Thanksgiving table complete, because who wants turkey without gravy? Turkey's great, but we all know the best part of Thanksgiving dinner is the sides. With Ibotta, you can make sure you get the whole family favorite side dishes, all the turkey, and all while getting yourself cash back. What am I talking about? Starting November 1st, for fourth year in a row, Ibotta is giving you a 100% cash back on all your Thanksgiving feast. Just add that to all the offers in the app to redeem for everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Download the Ibotta app now. Use the promo code MLB. You get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting on November 1st, which is coming up here real soon. Just go to the App Store, Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app. Use the promo code MLB. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA. Google Play, the App Store. Use the code MLB. Go shopping, take that receipt, download it, and you're going to get cash. You're not going to get points. You're going to get cash back. That's more important. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, and you make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing with Ibotta. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. We're coming right back after this here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, your host here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I do think he would take Pat Murphy with him, the bench coach. Some of you said, hey, maybe Pat Murphy will be the new manager. Well, if he's being considered for the managerial job, I don't know if Murphy would stay here. I would think, he's managed before. If he and Antanasio have had that conversation, hey, if Craig leaves, I'd like for you to be the manager. But if he's not under consideration, I would think Craig would want Pat Murphy coming with him. And, Murphy has been his right-hand man all these years, the former coach at Notre Dame, and great friends. And, they've made a great tandem. So I would think Counsell, if he's going to New York or Cleveland, Murphy, unless he's given the managerial job with the Mets I'm saying the Brewers, maybe he may or may not at this point of his life want to manage. Maybe he wants to be an assistant coach. Some guys don't want the head job. They want to be the JV. They want to be the freshman coach. They want to be the varsity assistant. And that's good too. I get that. Our manager's a difference maker. There's a couple of managers out there I thought were difference makers over the years. I thought Tom Kelly with the Minnesota Twins, who never managed again. I thought Tom Kelly was a difference maker. I think Sparky Anderson, some of you old schoolers out there remember him, Reds, Tigers. I thought Sparky was one of those guys who could take your team against his team, take your team against his team, be the manager of your team, and beat you managing his team. That's how good of a manager I thought Sparky Anderson was. There's a couple of guys, Pat Riley in the NBA, I felt that was that way. Everywhere he went, he turned a team into a winner. Are there any guys like that in Major League Baseball right now? I don't think so. I don't know. But I do think it's all about having the Jimmies and Joes, as I said. And those are, your athletes, your guys who could play, your stars. It's all about the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's, I've always said. And, I think you need to have great leadership from your manager and the coaching staff and in that clubhouse. But ultimately it's about putting together a team. But now you look at San Diego, they had all the talent in the world. The Mets spent a lot of money. They got some talent and they underachieved. Is it the manager? Is it not the manager? Was it Buck Showalter's fault? Was it Buck Showalter's fault in Baltimore when they didn't win? Buck Showalter had some success in New York. Okay. But I'm not saying Buck Showalter is a bad manager, but is Counsell going to be a difference maker with the Mets? Is all of a sudden he's going to get that talent to turn it around? I don't know. I tend to think I do believe it's more about winning. Now, Counsell did magic with the Milwaukee Brewers this year, winning 92 games. Incredible. Again, you look at that team, you look at the Arizona Diamondbacks, who've got some young pieces too, and you say, why can't that be us? It could have very well been. Was the manager the difference? Was Lovello the difference in Arizona? I don't know. Arizona just came together at the right time. Counsell, his postseason record has not been very good the last 5 years. Is that Counsell's fault? Or is the guys on that team not rising? Is it the front office part for not giving Counsell the appropriate ingredients to cook with? Remains to be seen. But that postseason record, I would think, would take into account, because, in the last couple of years it has with me with Counsell. I've looked at it and said, man, hasn't done too well in the postseason as of late. Hasn't won a series since in Colorado in the divisional series in 2018. So lots of things to consider with Craig Counsell, but ultimately I do think he's moving on. When it's going to happen could be after I drop this episode. It might not be to end of the World Series. It could be an off day next week when the World Series is not being played. We come back, we'll read some of your tweets, see what you got to say. Chuck Freeman here, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day, telling you at the top about the Jase case, Jase Medical. You always need to prepare for the unexpected. And with the Jase case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly infections. You can customize your case, add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jace Medical now offers customization of the Jase case. Dozens of add-on medications. Choose medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. They're always working for you. You can buy gift cards for someone who might need this, who might want this. Buy a gift card for your family or loved ones so they can get the Jase case on your own. Go to Jase Medical, and you see it. If you're watching me on YouTube, go to Jase Medical, Jase Medical.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you see the crawl at the bottom of the screen, what that is all about. Jase Medical. And you get the $20 gift discount on your order. Use that promo code Jase Medical.com. Again, providing 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes is get a Jase case to, you just got to fill out the online form. In some cases, jump on a quick call with one of our board-certified physicians. Ask any questions you like. Doctor created, doctor recommended, and go to Jase case right now. Go to YouTube as well. There's a video on YouTube. Don't get caught unprepared. Jase handles everything from online evaluations, licensed pharmacy, medication delivery, and ongoing consultation and care. That is Jase Medical, Jase Medical.com. And again, use that promo code there, and that's going to get you a discount of $20. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're coming right back. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman here, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Download us on Google, Spotify, Apple, or on all the major downloads. All the major downloads. And, you can find us everywhere. And, of course, our growing YouTube page. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We'll drop you episodes Monday through Friday. Of course, follow me along on Twitter as well. Chuck Freeman, Freimund. Chuck Freeman, and always love hearing your comments. And Brewer news is going to be dropping here in the offseason. We're going to find out some tenders, non-tenders, maybe some signings. Certainly the Craig Counsell news, that's going to be coming down. Okay, I put out there, in addition to my many tweets about Joel Embiid last night, I said what I talked about earlier here on the show. Could Counsell be doing this to let the Brewers know they shouldn't get too comfortable, that he shouldn't be taken for granted? Jeff says, let him go. Hire Stephen Vogt before Cleveland does. Steve was here for a little bit as a player. Did a nice job, but he's obviously he's coaching with the Mariners, and he's on Cleveland's list of candidates. Sort of, says Pack Fanatic. My guess is he wants to know his worth if other teams want him. His record of making the playoffs, a low playoff team, is attractive to many others. Well, making the playoffs, yes, his playoff record is not, though, Pack Fanatic. They'll look at his lousy playoff record, yes, which is a big flaw in his resume. Of course, exactly what I said. Jordan says, hope so. He's probably going to be announced within the next 48 hours as the manager of the Mets. We don't know about that. Joe says, I think he wants more money. A team can afford to build a team and add to it as needed without financial restraints, which we talk about ad nauseum with the Milwaukee Brewers. Nick says, I think he's just going through the free agency like any other player would. See what's on the open market. Managers rarely do, but Craig's being a trailblazer, and good for Craig for doing that. Nothing wrong with free enterprising and finding out your worth. I don't have no problem. And for some of you guys who say Craig's a traitor for doing this, come on. Anybody worth their salt. Testing the free agent market, okay, seeing what your worth is out there. Because hey, as a professional in any job, and non-professional in any job, you want to get the maximum of your ability and to see where you can go and earn your maximum money and a job you like too. It's all about enjoying where you work as well. Can't blame him. Randy says he's earned the ability to explore opportunities. Certainly has. Eugene says good luck if he moves on. Joey, I also think a message for the team to open up their darn wallet for some players. He's done more with less than any other manager. He certainly has, because there's other managers who've done less with more. J-Roll, what would his agent say? Oh, I don't know. Tim says he is gone. Come Sail Away says, I think he's going to the Mets. Not a real interview. It's just an offer meeting. He's earned this. Brewers wrongly assumed they had a lifetime hometown discount. That's true. I feel that way. And maybe he feels that way, but again, just because he's a hometown guy, yeah, the Brewers gave him his opportunity in the front office. After he retired, they moved him as a special assistant to Doug Melvin, and then eventually replaced Ron Renicky, which I could kind of see coming, that Craig was going to be manager in waiting. I mean, who really didn't? Good take, Chuck, says Austin. Employees should be able to freely shop themselves to show their worth. If they find a few million not worth it, if they find a few million, they'll know where the organization stands. Mike says, I think he wants to see what he can do in the bigger market. Everyone has an ego. Bring on Rick Sweet. Rick Sweet is the manager for AAA Nashville. No one better to help develop the young incoming players. Mark says, hey, please go to New York. Mark does not want Counsell back. Nick says, postseason wins in how many years? 0. Let's talk about being too comfortable. Okay, you're saying that he's being too comfortable. Rebecca, I don't think so. I hope he stays at MKE, and maybe Stearns asked him to go. Just take a look to see what they have to offer. Hopefully the Brewers will match it or at least be close to it. I am sure he would still love to be the guy to lead the crew to a World Series. Of course, he would love to lead his hometown. His dad worked here. We all know that. His dad worked in the front office with the Milwaukee Brewers, was I believe, a vice president within the organization. And grew up here, grew up Whitefish Bay, but that doesn't mean he won't leave. Does not mean anything. Pfister says he wants a ring and not just a taste of the apple each season. Exactly. Wouldn't blame him. Mark, maybe he's going to manage a real Major League Baseball team, probably tired in free agency, getting players that hit 200. Then make it work. Why can't the Brewers match the Bucks payroll? Well, that's an NBA thing. NBA, you're allowed to be creative and do certain things. Yes, you are. The NBA system is a whole different one, Major League Baseball, but this should have been solved in 1994, and the owners and Bud Selig back down. That's a whole different ballpark. Utah says he's going to get paid and try to win a World Series. Brewers ain't going to do it. Lots of tweets from you all coming out there regarding the Milwaukee Brewers. Some of you don't blame him for going. I certainly don't, and you shouldn't as well. If you want a chance at getting the chip, as you all say, getting a chip. That's what the kids say today. A chip. I want the chip. Giannis used that term the other day. A chip. I want the chip. Maybe Counsell wants the chip as a manager. He has been there as a player. Just saw the other day there was the anniversary of him winning the World Series in 1997. It was like 2 days ago or a day ago, scoring the winning run off that Renteria hit when Florida beat Cleveland. Would have been 1997, and here he is interviewing for the job in Cleveland. It's like last night I was at the Bucks game, covering the Bucks game in Philadelphia. The coach of Philadelphia was Nick Nurse, who Toronto has played Philly several times in the postseason. It's just crazy how these managers all go around. Melvin going from Oakland to San Francisco to San Diego, now San Diego. Like these teams are just like faceless. It's like, who can ever offer me the job? I don't know if that's the way with Counsell. We like to think he's got some loyalty to Milwaukee Brewers, but the organization has got to show loyalty to him. All right, everybody. Never got a chance to get to the second base job. We're going to do that a little bit later on Monday. Pete Ladd passed away a couple of days ago. Closer on the 1982 Brewers team. What a great guy. There were several on that 82 Brewers team. But I remember a few years later when Ladd was still on this team, and then Raleigh came back and took over the closers, but Ladd was still doing his part. I remember him telling me about his fastball. And he said, he goes, yeah, my fastball was working like a good sex term he talked about. And everybody around him who was around him with a microphone chuckled. And that was Pete Ladd's quote. I told him that a few years ago. He had forgotten about it, but that was Pete Ladd. One of the great guys in that clubhouse, win or lose, whether he gave up a 4-run ninth inning or he shut teams down, struck out the side. Pete Ladd was always great to talk to. And I talked to him a few years ago. I had him on my radio show. Sad to see Pete Ladd pass away, a former closer who got the final out in the 82 American League Championship Series on that round ball to Yount. It's going to do it. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you, everybody, for following us along. All you everydayers joining us on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll talk to you next week, everybody.